when they sing and dance.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Amity Bloom. The last time I shared a journal with you, we ended the story with I Found My Wings. And this is the continuation of that story. This time I wanted to create a layered journal both with fabric and paper, and I wanted to experiment with a different type of binding technique. This time the pages are made out of paper bags. Paper bags that you can cut and fold and use them to create your pocket pages. They are the perfect size to journal on, as well as giving you some space for hidden journaling. Just like with my previous artist book, this one is a no-sew journal. As you can see, there's no sewing on the spine. It looks difficult, but it's actually insanely easy to do, and it gave me the freedom to play around with different sizes of pages, which is something that I really like doing. If you're interested and would like to learn how I created this layered paper bag no-sew journal, definitely let me know in the comments below. I used a mix of her wings, which is the newest kit in the shop, as well as sage skies and the paper bags that you will see throughout the journal. I wanted it to look very organic, as if a little fairy took her sewing notions and made herself a beautiful journal to keep all of her treasures. The color palette is primarily blues and greens, so I wanted to continue the theme of the little skirt. Similar to what I made in this journal, I added a little skirt, but this one was actually glued onto the cover. So I collaged laces as well as this really pretty embroidered fabric. This was from an estate sale that I purchased recently. I believe it's called rickrack. The sweet lady, she was a Greek lady. If you'll notice, she took the rickrack and then she crocheted lace and attached it to the rickrack. And on the end, there was a knot that I think she just put so that the project, that's where she finished it. So I love this little piece that I added to the fairy skirt. And then I did hand sew some beads, some glass beads, a sequined trim, and so I just cut around the shape, some laces and silks. I wanted little pieces to be peeking out, and that's the top, all of the layered paper bags, and that's the bottom. Let's take this off. Oh, and before I show you this here, just a small little detail, but do you see that little circle? I cut it from this little piece of lace here. It looks like tatted lace, but just larger. I have about 4 of these, so I decided to cut at least one. I think adding those kinds of pieces to our journals is what really makes them heirloom treasures, because you're recycling and you're using these beautiful things that are probably not even made anymore. And that way they live forever in our journals. I want to make myself a skirt like this. Can you imagine? That would take up a lot of material and a lot of time, but one day. So this is what the actual front cover looks like. This is the back cover. So the cover was made out of a vintage album. I like using them as bases to create my book sometimes. And then I just distressed the areas that I wanted more interest in. It's this little frame from Tim Holtz. I used one of the digitals to create a background, and I just cut up some sentiments from a poetry book that I have. She loves it and finds in it her great happiness. So that kind of gives an introduction to whatever is going to be inside of this journal, or things that I love and that they make me happy. Okay, so then when you open the book, I love how this journal looks like when you open it up, because there's so many layers and details to explore. So on the inside of the front cover is a little fairy book that I made. This digital is from Butterfly Notes, and it's the perfect size. I didn't resize it to make a little notebook, and the notebook is attached to the paper clip. So I wanted it to look like as if a little fairy left her notebook in there. For all of my little fairy and butterfly kits, I use actual butterfly wings, and I add them to the ladies so that they look really magical. When you open up the notebook, you can actually write in here. In the pocket is a little note. Would a fairy fly the same way as a butterfly? Here's a little butterfly that I just attached with a brad to make it look as if the little butterfly flew into the book and wanted to live there for a couple of days. And the inside pages, this one is embossed. Some newsprint paper, which I really like to write on because it looks vintage, but you don't even have to tea stain it. And the back. Such a sweet little notebook, and my idea for this is to add some of my favorite poems in here that have to do with fairies and butterflies. And so then behind the book, you can see the album that I used, and it's super fragile, very old and breaking apart. That's why I felt comfortable enough to cut it up so I could use it for my cover. Both the sentiment and the paper are from Sage Skies. A little millinery flower that actually matches the wallpapers that I used perfectly. They're like little sisters. I just thought it was perfect. This is an envelope, and it says, "A sunny day in my garden, I found a special flower that sparkled in the sun." And let's just pretend this is the 12th of June of 1923. And so I wanted it to look like an old piece of an envelope that you pulled out a special letter from years ago. And then this here is the special flower. Do you see on the flower there's like little butterfly wings? Very faded. So like right there is another one, and then right there. I actually took one of the butterfly wings that I added on one of my fairy girls, and I transferred it onto the petal. And I wanted to create a butterfly flower, and the story is that if you find one of these flowers and you pick one up, it will release its little pixie dust, and if it stays on your hands, you will then turn into a fairy. This is just one of my specimen card backgrounds, and then I added little pixie dust on the center and then on the sides, since it is a fairy flower. And then on the background is just one of the pretty papers from her wings. All of these ephemera pieces, the envelope and the flowers, even the little card, are included in the kit so that you can have a play with making your own. So now, because of this flower, she has turned into a fairy and she has found her wings. On the first page, this little doily, I just attached it so that it looks like the little fairy just put her little doily on the page. And this is actually a little pocket that flips out. I love this little corner. Beautiful silk, and then some fabric with little beads on it. All of these fabrics actually have a lot left over, so we're creating some bundles so that you can use these beautiful fabrics as well. Some French receipt, and in the pocket, such a magical photo for me, and her fairy wings. So this is a photo that I absolutely love. And then behind there, I made a floating pocket using my recent wallpaper pack. I just fuzzy cut along the top so that the flowers would stand out. And then this is actually made from a book page. I made my own little paper bag. So I experimented with using the paper bags that are from the kit that you can just print and cut and assemble. And then I also played around with making my own using a template. So I thought that this was so pretty. And this is some beautiful paper from some vintage fabric that I had. You'll see the paper bag and the shape of it. So the first page being a paper bag, I created multiple little tuck spots. And then for the second page, it's actually the back of that first paper bag. In the pocket of the paper bag, I included a printable. As you can see, this is just the copy version, but the real version, a really beautiful embossed card, and then there's a sweet sentiment on the inside. Can you imagine? This is how cards were made back in the day. It's just gorgeous. So I knew I had to share that special piece of ephemera with all of you. And that just is tucked into the pocket. And then for the fold out piece, I attached some lace. And it's all just layered together. The beads are actually on a little pin that is attaching the lace to the piece of paper. And it allows for you to actually flip the little lace piece, which I really like as well. I just love all the colors layered together. And so when you open up your fold-out piece, there's some fairy surprises hidden within. I attached on the paper clip a little collage that I made on a tag. How would you tell the story? And then there's a little space here for writing, just a little ruffle, some lace, and a beautiful flower. Everything that the fairy touched, she left little pixie dust. And so on the envelope, there is a message. So it's a continuation of the sentiment on the tag. How would you tell the story? And I just wrote with my art. It's so cute. Look at the difference. It's so tiny. And it fits perfectly within the envelope. And also inside, there's a little postcard. You get the little mini fairy versions as well as normal versions. I just think these little envelopes are so much fun because you can use the ephemera, but you can also make your own and make little notes to go inside, and it just tucks in there perfectly. And I didn't want to glue this envelope down because I liked the design so much. To me, this is a sweet little fairy tag. And when you remove the paper clip, this is the piece of paper that I actually folded and I printed double-sided so that I have my writing space on the inside. And all I did is I printed this really beautiful image on the other side, working on creating a digital kit using these gorgeous little flowers. Perfect way to add more journaling space in a journal like this where you only have a paper bag to begin with. It made me be very creative with all of my journaling spots and the places that I would like to attach ephemera to. It does make it feel like a playful journal that a fairy tucked little pieces into. So on the third page, I took apart a necklace and I just cut the little piece off and glued it onto the ruffle. On the ruffle, which is like a little tuck spot, I made this little interactive tag. So this tag says, "Open them and rise," and it has a pressed hydrangea for my dad's garden. And then you just move it to the side and it says wings, what they symbolize. And on the back, I just printed it double-sided. It's just so much fun. And then this image I love. It's a vintage photograph. I like to imagine the little places that a fairy would choose to hide. So the little bushes or a little bouquet of flowers. You could also use this as a little clip on a page if you wanted to. So this is the back of the previous page. I've just added some lace, a little velvet tab, and in the pocket I left some journaling space for me, and then I also played around with this. This is an image from her wings, and it's a Polaroid of some little drawers where I would imagine the fairy would keep her little fabrics and pieces that she would use to sew. And this is a vintage document. This is the original, so I scanned this in, and that's the vintage document that's included in the kit. And that's my favorite thing. I love finding and sourcing vintage treasures that I can then play with. And then this is a beautiful piece of fabric that I would imagine a gorgeous fairy dress to be made out of. And I thought it was perfect to include a little sample of it where she would then open the little drawer and have her fabrics in here. Same idea here. This is just a piece of paper that I printed double-sided, some vintage script, and then on the other side it has those gorgeous doves and some journaling space. Including little pieces like this makes it a lot more functional if you're trying to write in the journal. And on this page, I want to journal about a day that brought me so much joy. Add little prompts to your pages so that when you're going through the journal, you're inspired to immediately write or just jot down some things on your paper. And on this page, it's another paper bag, and I added a little cluster, some silk ruffles, some beautiful flower lace, and then this crystal bead in the shape of a butterfly. And it reminds me of a moonstone. And what I did is I took some glittery little metallic thread, and then I just attached it as if it's the little trail of pixie dust that the butterfly left. So I glued it to the page so that it doesn't go anywhere. And it gives you a little clue as to what this gorgeous image is. And so this image, let me take it out. I started using the photo corners in my story within my heart journal because it makes it a lot easier to include photos that you can then take and then journal on the back. It makes it feel like an actual scrapbook. I added some mica wings to the vintage photograph, and I love the frame, beautiful color, the field of flowers. This photo also is so beautiful. It can represent your mother, your grandmother, your sister. It's just so lovely. And then it's her little wings, her tiny little bitty wings, But similar to what I did in my previous journal, I wanted to continue that sweet tradition. So that was really fun to alter the photo. And so this is the paper bag, beautiful wallpaper. And instead of closing the paper bag shut like the previous ones, I left this one open so that I could do my journaling. And it hides away. You would have never known if you don't flip this little tag out. So this is the paper bag on the inside. So just like this. Instead of closing the paper bag, all I did is I left it open. And I altered it and distressed it, and I loved it because of the girl. If you notice, she has a very ruffly skirt, and her boots and her pigtails. I just think this photo is so pretty, and you can easily add little butterfly wings to it. So you can take any of the butterflies and fuzzy cut them out and add them to the back of her dress. I think you can have so much fun with this photo. I wanted to represent with the photos as well as the journaling is we all start from the same story. We all start as little bitty babies, and then we grow up to be little girls, and then we grow up to be women. We grow and we find our wings throughout our life. And then I think it was also symbolic because when we're little girls, we believe in fairies, we believe in the magic. Always keep your little child heart safe and sound. You're never too old to play, and that's what I'm trying to do with my journals this year. I'm really just playing around, trying new little ideas. Maybe they work out, maybe they don't. Maybe they look a little wonky, like, you know, a journal made out of paper bags, but it made my heart happy, and that is the whole purpose to it. On the back of that paper bag is this one. So similar idea, my little photo corners to hold my altered photo, blossoms that carry hope. And I just stitched my little butterflies so it looks like they're flying through the little blossoms. I always back all of my ephemera pieces because I like to do my journaling on the back. And just to show you that some ideas don't always go as planned, originally this was just going to be a tuck spot, so I was going to tuck in the photo, but it ended up being that the photo was a little too large for the tuck spot, so I just put my little photo corners. And it's perfectly fine. You never lose when you're just playing and experimenting with your journals. Everything can be covered up, and in the end, it adds more character to your pages. And then here, I just collaged some of the sentiments. She was a dreamer. Gave myself some writing space. This one was more simple. You don't need to create pages like these where you decorate everything and you do journaling. You can simply alter a photograph or create a little floating journal card and then just tuck it into a paper clip. So I tried to keep a balance of some very decorated pages and then some more simple pages. Okay, and then here on the back of this paper bag, I added my little photo corners again. This photo to me is just so playful, so feminine, so innocent. I got inspired by their tutus and made a little ruffle of how I imagined their tutus to look like. And even though they're not little fairies, to me they hold the magic and the innocence that fairies represent. So it was perfect to put in my journal. This photo is from the Vintage Snapshot kit. This is an example of one of the pages. The best days were when Bambi came to visit. I thought that was perfect. And then my sister's goes with this photo. Or you can mix and match. But this kit is quite lovely if you're trying to create ephemera with some pretty photographs. And the photo is attached to the photo corner and it's interactive. She felt the most free while dancing. So I love how the sentiment is hidden behind the photo. And then for this page, it's actually removable. I just wanted to play around with a paper bag of this size. It's a larger size. And the idea of being able to just move it around the journal. What makes this page so interactive is that there's a paper bag, but there's also an envelope, and there's ephemera tucked into the envelope. In the envelope, let's see what the fairy left us. Beautiful sentiment, and one of my favorite photos from Butterfly Notes. This is a vintage image, and I picked different butterfly wings and attached them to the sweet little fairies. This photo is just so inspiring to me. And then the sentiment. How would love to have wings, blue ones, to open them and rise. That gives us a little hint as to what's in the envelope. And then there's a little note that the fairy left for us. She's growing her wings like a flower in bloom, and inside of the envelope are our fairy wings. Isn't that so cute? So these wings are also included in the kit. As you can see, they're not real. I wish they were, they're not. They're just a printable. But I tried to get the perfect color that I think a fairy wing would look like. What I did is I laminated it and then I added some glitter, my little pixie dust. I really like how it looks like when you add it on top of a photo of your backgrounds. You can just add these little wings to everything and anything. And because when I think of fairy wings, I think of blue. So the little note piece being a beautiful blue, and then the sentiment of wishing to have blue wings. And we finally have them. At least in our journals, we can have our blue wings. And so on the back of the paper bag, I created a pocket with some lace, some ribbon, and I fuzzy cut one of the wallpapers from the kit as well as a little ruffle. So in here is a photo that I altered. This photo is from Sage Skies. All I did is I took from my poetry book, it took me like 30 minutes to try to find these exact words. So it says, "Why does the bird sing?" And on the back side, I left it blank so I could do some journaling. And this is just an ephemera card that I wanted to layer on top. And in our family, we actually have 3 birds. And I've shared this before, but we love birds. And this is one of their wings. Something special. So that just tucks in there. And then last but not least, in the paper bag, and same thing as I did in the beginning, I printed off this really beautiful image on copy paper, and it's little angels praying. The symbolism of wings, the symbolism of birds, all of that also to me has a spiritual significance to it. I also view fairies and little butterflies as your little angels. I printed it double-sided so I could add a photo in the back if I wanted to. But I'm going to do my journaling on here about my guardian angel. So that was on that page, and I just tuck it right in there. And then on this page, on the paper clip, I have attached some ephemera pieces. So this is a tag from the kit. I love the little grunginess of it. I attached a brad to hold the twine. I just liked the look. I thought it looked very vintage. And then this actually is attached to the photo corner, but you can move it aside. And then underneath your journaling card, you have another piece of paper. The same fairy wings that I laminated are put on her back. And I liked this photo because her face was hidden behind the flowers. This is what I imagine a fairy to be in real life, a little shy, a little timid, and always hidden within the flowers. So I thought that that was a perfect photo to represent, I guess, the shy nature of what a fairy would do. On the bottom, I just layered some fabric and that gorgeous postcard that you saw in mini form in the beginning, but this is the real vintage one. Well, it's not real, it's the copy version, but this is the size of the actual postcard. I just thought it was so pretty with the hint of blue and the little birds. And then this fabric is a scrap piece for my collection, but it's a little butterfly. I can't bring myself to cut it apart or to use it, so I'm going to keep it as a little sample. And that's the little fairy bundle. This is the other paper bag, and this tiny little sequin flower. So cute, and all of the colors. I think the colors went so well together with the browns and the color of the ruffle. And then behind the paper bag, I left it open so that I could include a little notebook inside. I just used my scrap pieces that were left over from the kits, and I used little brads for the binding. Since this is a no-sew journal, I didn't want to sew this little tiny notebook. And on the inside, I used newspaper print paper, just a couple pages. So this was a super easy little notebook to put together, and it just tucks in perfectly in the paper bag. So then for the back of my journal, this is where I decided to be a little bit more personal. Since it is a journal for me, I always like to include at least one photo of myself. And this one, like I said, is a continuation of my previous journal. And in the pocket here, you'll notice that it's me. And this is a photo of myself from a wedding that I went to about a month ago. And I know the photo's in black and white, but the dress is actually a beautiful teal. Basically like this. This is pretty identical to the color of the dress, and it has a lot of beaded appliques and embroidery. It's absolutely gorgeous. Every time I thrift or I go estate sale shopping, I always try to pick up vintage dresses. And to me, it's the perfect little fairy dress. So I printed the photo in black and white, and I attached my fairy wings onto the photo, and so I can fly away in my journal. And then the sentiment is, all she has to do is fly. So in the beginning is, she found her wings, and then the ending is, all she has to do is fly, because she finally found her wings, and the last step is to fly, you know, and be free and feel free. That is the end of the book. That I thought this photo was perfect to put on the last page spread. And this actually is an old vintage postcard. And it's actually blank, which is very rare to find a fully blank postcard. So I've been saving this to do some special journaling. And here on this pocket, this is from the kit, and I just added some lace and some little pleats on the bottom. I just think it's so cute and so funny. So then the last and final image is a gorgeous image from Sage Skies. I loved the flow of her teal dress, and so I, of course, wanted to add this little ruffle so it looks like it's the dress but come to life. And that is the last and final page of my journal. I really hope that this video inspired you. I know there were lots of little wonky parts to it, and it's probably not a traditional journal. So if you're someone that likes to play around with journal making, I think this journal is a good little representation of experimenting and taking a theme and trying to find different ways to use that theme throughout the pages. This is one of the journals that I created. I actually ended up making 5. Not all of them in the same style, of course. This one was just for me to play. It takes so much time to make a journal like this with all the details, but I love it. If you like this style of a journal, definitely let me know, and I can make one for the journal collection that I am planning on finally sharing and selling some of my journals so that you guys can actually hold them and use them as well. A little sneak peek to the other journals that I've been working on are these journals right here. One is itty bitty, super tiny. This is the back of it. Little hints of blue from that same fabric. This is the spine of another. And so many beautiful ruffles. So these journals will be shared in the coming weeks. So I will be filming those flip throughs next, just to show you variety in journal making, and also you can fully decorate a journal like this and go crazy with the details, or you can keep it more simpler. So thank you so much for watching. I hope that that video was inspiring, and I can't wait to talk to you guys soon. And until next time, I hope that you take your little wings and you start creating something beautiful for you that makes you truly happy and brings you joy. Sending you so much peace and so much love.